highest level of the motor coach industry, there's only one company building coaches from the ground up right here in the USA. And today we're at Newell Coach here in Miami, Oklahoma with Grant Kernan, president of Newell Coach. And you've got some exciting stuff to share with us today.
We do, Andrew. We appreciate you guys coming. Today we're going to be walking you through the manufacturing process. The last time we had a video done, it was 4 years ago. It was in the middle of COVID. So we're really excited to be able to redo that video. This is Gene Langston. Gene's our vice president of manufacturing, 30+ year employee at Newell. Worked in all different facets of the organization. And James Nethery, you guys might remember James from previous videos. James heads up our design and engineering team. These two work hand in hand in designing and building these coaches. And as you said, we're really the only ones doing this anymore. We build them from the ground up, design here, build here, and that gives us a lot of advantages in the marketplace from what we do that our customers appreciate. And of course, we're extremely proud that we're building them right here in the US. All the steel, all the engines, you know, they're all American, built by Americans right here, and we're really excited about that. And that's really important to our customers as well.
Yes, sir, and myself and the viewers are extremely impressed with the finished product, but I think there's a lot of stuff that we don't see in the bones of these coaches, and I'm really looking forward to showing the folks today.
Yeah, they're excited to be able to show you kind of behind the walls and behind the beautiful interiors that, you know, we're known for. One of the other things that is really important that you'll be able to see today is behind those walls is the structure that we build into the chassis, the structures that we build into the wall systems. All those things are a big part of what makes a Newell. They're a really important part in the longevity of our coaches. In our service department across the way here, we'll walk through and we'll see coaches 20, 30, 40 years old. Of course, we've been in business since 1967, so we've got quite a few coaches out there. And the longevity of those coaches is a real testament to how we build them. The way we build them is very unique, and that allows us to have that type of longevity and type of quality.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm looking forward to learning a lot today. And can you show us where it all starts at?
These guys will take you through the tour, and I'll catch up with you later.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
We're a long way from the finished product here, but this is where it all starts?
This is where it all starts. You know what's interesting about Newell is one thing you won't see as you walked around the grounds and the property, you don't see pre-made chassis. You don't see bus shells rolling in that get converted. We start from the ground up. And what that allows us is a lot of customization. That allows us a lot of flexibility and really building what the client wants. They come in and they give us their wish list, and we can shuffle the components around on that chassis and really build them a custom motor coach, and nobody else in the industry can build to that level.
Yes, sir. This looks like some pretty industrial grade steel behind us. What are we looking at here?
This is the bones of the coach. This is how the chassis starts, and you'll see as we move through the next pieces of the weld line how all these pieces come together.
It's starting to come together here. What are we looking at?
This is one of our chassis, and it's about 40 hours into a 75-hour process. Having control of our own chassis, building it from the ground up, allows us to do a level of customization that others can't. It allows us to be able to move our compartments, change the size, depending on customer preference on how they design their coach. So again, we're about 40 hours into a 75-hour process. At 75 hours, the coach will be on wheels, and it will move to another department to get a very heavy coat of paint put on the chassis that serves as a rust prevention agent.
I know most of the Newell coaches are 45 feet long, but are you able to build other lengths of coach?
On a rare occasion, we will build a different length of coach. We have built some 40-foot coaches in the past. It depends on the customer's preference and needs. Even though the 45-foot is the absolute most common, could we build one shorter? Yes, absolutely.
And as this all comes together, we're seeing some cross members here, a lot of structure that we don't see once these coaches get lined with carpet and everything, but what all goes into this initial structure here?
So what you're seeing is our bridge truss frame underneath the coach, and this platform is really what allows us to shuffle those slides around the way we need. We really want a strong support system underneath the coach. And what this also does is it supports those slide rooms the way they're supposed to. Some of the other manufacturers, when they cut the holes in the chassis for those rooms to go in, they have to go back in and reinforce. This is our reinforcement. We do it from scratch, so this is the way it's supposed to be.
Yes, sir, and I've never seen this before, but tubes in the middle of the frame there, what are we seeing there?
So those are conduits. We run electrical, we run pneumatics, we run hydraulics, anything that needs to get from the back of the coach to the front, or you notice there's a couple of places where those appear to be cut short. So that's where they need to drop off in a bay for electrical service or pneumatic. But that's what those are. Those are just conduits.
Yes, sir. And what type of metal is this? Is there a particular type of steel?
Type of steel used kind of depends on where it's at. The structure of the chassis is all steel underneath the floor. And that's important, so we got a good center of gravity underneath the floor. Majority of our weight is underneath the floor, so the coach is real stable. But you'll see 1/4 inch 3/16 steel, and that depends on where it's at in the structure. We've gone through FEA analysis and made sure that the structure is what it needs to be in the areas that it needs to be.
Here towards the back of the coach, I'm assuming this is where the axles are going to be, and I'm seeing some really robust structure here. What's going on back here?
These are your supports for your airbag suspension. There's 4 on the drive, there's 2 on the tag. We'll see in the next phase that the suspension component's actually going in. I'm standing in front of the drive axle section, you're in front of the tag axle section. Those are a 4-link. We have sway bars on the front and the rear. That really stabilizes the coach in the corners. We have the active shocks that you'll see later. It's measuring the road and changing the dampening of the shocks in real time.
I'm seeing a lot of this steel here in the rear of the coach, assuming this is where the Cummins X15 goes, but what is all of this structure here?
There's a lot of components in this engine compartment, right? We've got a radiator here. Of course, our engine transmission will feed in right here. We'll see that a little bit later. Air cleaner and various hydraulic tanks and components are up above. So this is a supporting structure. This also gives the interior structure that we're building around all these engine components, and so that has to be very robust. It has to tie into the whole rest of the chassis. You can see these beams down here that carry main weight of the engine. Those tie directly into the suspension components that you saw on the bridge over the drive and tag.
We don't see all of this steel in the finished product, but there's no shortage of steel here in this part of the coach.
You do that somewhat intentionally. There's a lot of structure behind all those beautiful panels that you see, but the finished product does have nice stainless panels covering all these pieces. So yeah, they don't normally get to see this. So this is good.
These are getting ready to get added into the coach. What are we looking at back here?
So what you're looking at is the drive axle and the tag axle. These are imported from Germany. You can see the mounts for the airbags on the corners. It's a 4-link suspension. One thing that's kind of apparent on the back here, the steering mechanism for our active rear steer. We're the only ones in the industry that have an active rear steer.
And I see a ZF here, so this is a ZF component from Germany?
All of the suspension components are manufactured by ZF. That includes the components you see here. It includes the front independent suspension. That includes the shocks, the active shock dampeners. So that's a nice cohesive system for the suspension.
I believe that's the same types of suspension components that Mercedes-Benz uses in Germany as well.
That is correct. ZF is one of the largest OEM suppliers in all of automotive, and that goes from the smallest car up to the largest heavy-duty truck. They're all over.
And that active steer tag axle, we've started to see 4-wheel steering in the real high-end Mercedes, the Bentleys, the super expensive cars. But Newell Coach has been doing that active steer for quite some time now.
Since 2004.
So the automotive industry is taking notes from you guys.
Just catching up.
Yes, sir. Now we're starting to see some slide rooms here, some more components going in. What's happening at this stage?
The coach has come into this stage straight out of our chassis stage, our weld stage. In this department is where we're going to install our Cummins engine, our Allison transmission. We're going to continue with the suspension, meaning airbags, shocks. This is where we're going to run our air lines, hook them up to the suspension. Our generator will be installed at the front of the chassis. This is also an area where the electrical department starts with the coach, which they will remain with the coach through the entire build from this point forward. It's also an area where our valid slide out rooms are installed, and you will be able to see our level pop-up floor. So there is a lot going on here. This will also be an area before the coach moves that our flooring will be put down. It's a big insulated floor, and later in the process you'll see some more benefit of the thickness of the floor and how we use that benefit. A lot of the belly compartments will be started now. Our fiberglass lining will be installed here for the plumbing department. Our fuel tank and our def tank will be installed here, and our fuel tank, of course, is built right here in-house. We try to build all we can in-house. That helps control not only our quality, but it also helps continue the flexibility of customization that we get to offer to the Newell customer.
And talking about these slide rooms here, these are the biggest slide rooms in the industry that I'm aware of, and I'm seeing a lot of metal structure here. What's going on with these slide rooms?
So the slides are manufactured by Valid Manufacturing. They're in Salmon Arm, Canada. They build the best slide in the industry. We partnered with them many years ago. I think we started in 2002 with the first Valid slide. We did have the flat floors before. These are all electrically actuated. They're not hydraulically actuated, so you don't have any of the issues with hydraulic leaks through the walls and through any of the floors of the coach. All electric. They're very robust. You can see the aluminum construction that they've done. And what's interesting about these slides is even when they get full, you can see we pre-weight these slides, and we'll explain some of that later. But even with that, they're easily moved in and out. The mechanism that drives them on the sides, a little bit difficult to see. All of this is very robustly made. These actually kind of work to simplify it like a drawer slide. There's a large linear bearing on the back side, 2 linear bearings on the other side. There's a gear reduction motor that will drive this from the other side. These automatically lock in and lock out through the actuation of that motor, so there's no additional pins anywhere. Sometimes that can cause an issue if those don't deploy or if those don't retract. These always lock in and out.
And I'm seeing some different types of metals here. Is this like an aluminum here, but then maybe a steel structure here?
So yes, this tube around the perimeter of the slide that is exposed to the elements, that's where your room seal mounts, and that is a stainless steel tube. Everything else that you will see above the chassis is aluminum, because we want to keep everything above as light as possible but strong. That reduces the center of gravity, keeps the center of gravity low, keeps the coach very stable.
Something else to point out while we're right here at this area of the chassis is you'll notice that these weights that are put into this wider bay is going to later become our plumbing bay, and this will house our freshwater tank and our black water tank. Our black and gray is combined. Typically they're 143 gallons each. We do offer other sizes available, but the reason that the weights are put in here is we're trying to simulate 2 full tanks, 1 full tank of fresh water, 1 full tank of black water, and that's how the coach is going to be built. That's the same principle behind the weights in the slide out rooms. We're simulating finished weight in the room as we build the chassis. Later, of course, these will come out.
Yes, sir, and what is the biggest holding tanks Newell's able to build?
Right now we're offering 2 sizes. We're offering the 143s and the 184s. So we do offer 184 freshwater, 184 black gray combined. And 184 gallon tanks are pretty large.
You do a lot of dry camping with those.
Pretty large.
Yes, sir.
And then right behind you is going to be our house battery home. Later in the process, you'll see 6 batteries, 3 on top, 3 on the bottom, on very easy serviceable slide trays, so they can be easily serviced, changed out. This bay will also serve as a curbside fueling station. A Newell coach is capable of fueling from either side.
I know that Newell has cameras on the fuel bay doors. Is that on every Newell to have that fuel bay door camera?
It is. It's a standard feature on the Newell, and what's great about that feature is it can be accessed from the driver's seat or from our Intrepid screens, but one great feature is it can be accessed while the coach is in motion. So you can actually go to your screen up front at the dash and go to your camera page and scroll through and pick that view, which it's a great help if you've ever had a 45-foot automobile and you're trying to get squared up with a fuel island or a fuel pump. That camera is an absolute necessity.
So now we've got the X15 back here. What's going on back here?
So engine's just been put in. They've mocked up the transmission and engine out to the side. We slide this in on a cradle as one sub-assembly, goes in really slick. And we hope that you never have to have it, but if you did have to do maintenance on that engine, that's deep maintenance, that could be slid back out as a sub-assembly, makes it very easy to work on. One thing you'll note on the Newell coach that's different from a lot of other Class A's is this engine is very accessible. you'll be able to see all of this just as it is right here. You'll be able to work on it. You got access to belts, you got access to check your oil. It's all right here at the back of the coach, very easy to get to. Some of these hoses that you see, those are hydraulic hoses. Our cooling fan, the engine cooling fan, is hydraulically driven. There's a hydraulic pump on the PTO of the transmission. That gives us a lot of control of that fan. We can really dial in the speed from idle all the way up to full load on the engine. 605 horsepower, 1,950 foot-pounds of torque. That Allison 6-speed transmission, that's been a great package for us for a lot of years.
Yeah, these hydraulic hoses, these are heavy duty.
Yes, and one thing you'll notice is there's a sheathing on that. So that is a Kevlar sheathing, and so that prevents any abrasion that might happen either through assembly or even, as the coach ages and things sag a little bit, if it does happen to touch an edge, that is a Kevlar wrap. Another thing that's kind of unique to Newell is the way that we've handled the after treatment. As you know, EPA is a big thing in all things automotive, and the way that our counterparts have routed the after treatment, which is the exhaust, is to go up through the cap. And that takes space away from your living area, your back closet. So we wanted to keep as much room upstairs for the customer and keep everything down below. So the way we have routed our after treatment is we come out of the turbo, we go around behind and underneath the engine. Our DPF, SCR, and our DEF unit is on this side. Everything exits out from under the coach. There's nothing above. What you do see up here, we will have your air filter, your clean air filter. So we're taking intake air from above the coach that'll come down the cap. It feeds into the air filter above here, feeds into the engine charge air cooler, but we tried to keep everything nice and compact so we're not taking away from the space above.
It looks like a Newell Coach sidewall here. What are we looking at here, sir?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's to represent the way that the Newell is put together, the way the body is constructed, and what you're looking at is if you were standing on the outside of a Newell looking right at the side. We'll just start right here with the framing. We use a stud type frame. We bracket and add strength anywhere that it's possible. We bond our aluminum sheeting to our aluminum studs and bracing with a very high bond double-sided tape. We do also do some pop riveting on a Newell when it's necessary, especially in seamed areas. But the great thing about a Newell is you won't see those pop rivets exposed when the coach is finished. They're tucked away behind trim. They're sealed real well. That way there's no concern or no worries about leaking. We flush fit our windows. The goal is to keep everything above the chassis height, very strong and robust, but at a very light weight. Keeps the coach heavier, center of gravity, keeps the coach stable on the road.
Yeah, so it looks like we're seeing the different phases of the sidewall kind of from start to finish. What's happening here?
Yes, what you're seeing here is the inside portion of a wall. This is the inside portion of a wall stud and the bracing. The foam that you see that is sprayed in between and fills every gap in the Newell, it serves as insulation. And in our foaming process, it's a great insulator. It's a noise reduction, and it really works well. If you've been around Newells, then you know that a Newell cools very easily, heats very easily. And then it goes from the foam. After the foam's done, now you're looking at skin wall plywood. It's a light plywood, 5/8 inch thick. It's very strong, but it's lighter than normal plywood, saves weight on the coach. This is a window treatment, the window sill that we use, and this just serves as a window sill.
Here the coach is really starting to come together. I'm noticing all aluminum sidewalls, and like I mentioned, I don't know anybody else doing aluminum sidewalls in the Class A industry. What part of the process is this coach at here?
Okay, this is a department that we refer to as our skin line, and you're right, we're the last one in the industry, Class A, that's doing an all aluminum body on the coach. This is where the walls will be built for the coach. The aluminum skin goes on. That's what's happened here. Also, the fiberglass portion of our body, meaning the rear cap, the front cap, the fenders, that's installed at this stage as well. The roof is tied in here, and behind you, Andrew, is a roll of our roof material. It's a seamless roof. It's all one continual run, full length of the coach to eliminate leak points. Seamless is the only way to go when you're doing that. And we only penetrate the roof in areas that we absolutely have to, meaning an escape hatch, air conditioners, things of that that nature. Before this coach will leave this department and move to the next department, it will go through a water test as it sits right here. That is why there's a drain in the floor that runs the full length of the coach. It will actually go through a water test testing for leaks while it's right here. If a coach is going to leak, you want it to leak here so you can fix it here. Now this is only one water test that it will go through. It goes through more water tests before it ever gets into the hands of the customer on later in the process.
Now on the other side of this coach, I see this is a mid-entry coach, and Newell Coach is the only one doing a mid-entry at this level. How many mid-entry coaches are you doing, or what percentage of mid-entry coaches are there?
There's been an increase in mid-entry coaches lately, and right now we're at about 65% of what we build are now mid-entry versus the front entry.
That's really cool. I'm a huge fan of mid-entries myself, but can we take a look inside of this coach at this part of the process?
Oh, absolutely.
As we're going into this coach, I'm seeing all kinds of metal structure. Usually we see beautiful tile work and lighting and over-the-top design on the entryway, but this is a very robust structure. What's the structure in this entryway here?
So you're seeing the chassis. This is all integral to the chassis. All this is solid steel. You walk into these steps and there is no flex.
Yes, sir.
So this will all be covered by the pretty stuff a little bit later. We'll see that. But yeah, you're right. It's all solid.
Well, this is incredible to see all of this metal in the ceiling, the sidewalls here. A lot of metal structure going on. What's happening right now?
Inside the coach, as you mentioned with the roof structure here, what you're seeing there are our roof bows that span the width of the coach, and then they're supported by extra support that ties into our roof bows that provides a very strong and robust roof line. The roof is capable of handling a lot of weight up there. You know, of course, you already have your air conditioners up there. You're more than welcome to hang from it and see if there's any flexibility.
So you think my body weight can hang from one of these?
Oh, absolutely.
Can I do some pull-ups on it?
Absolutely.
All right, let's give it a try, guy. Oh yeah, I don't have a real good grip, but I can definitely knock some pull-ups out. Didn't even flex at all.
No,
so.
It's very strong. Again, it just helps with the stability of the build and the rigidity of the coach from the chassis up.
And the sidewalls have a lot of metal structure, and I'd like to just point out how close these metal beams are. How far apart are those?
It's on average of 6 to sometimes 8 inches depending on the layout. Also can depend on what later could be fastened to that wall as the coach is built. Sometimes we add structure depending on the design of the coach. Added structure.
Okay, and I'm seeing the ceiling here in the slide room is aluminum. And as we walk back here as well, on the sidewall of the coach where there's no slide room, that same robust metal structure all throughout the coach.
You also see that there is still added around the door to keep the door bracing to the strength that it's needed. The door is going to cycle many a times through its life. So
yes, sir. So mostly aluminum, but steel in certain points. I'm noticing some more steel as well back here around the slide room, like we mentioned before. So there is some steel above the floor.
Where the strength was needed, we do add those steel elements. And that's more apparent in the front and rear caps. So we needed a pretty robust skeleton to support that fiberglass cap and attach it to the coach. The fiberglass is strictly a decorative element. It's not really adding the strength to the coach. The strength comes in this full inner skeleton that goes all the way down and connects to the steel in the chassis in 1, 2, 4 places. And up in the front cap, you'll see a lot of that same steel structure. For the most part, the fiberglass is aesthetic. So we want to make sure that there's a robust cage over this cab area. And you can see that ties in back to the room ring in the coach, all the way up down the A-pillar, and that attaches to the structure of the chassis below. There are these steel bars below the window, and there's a steel bar above the window to make sure that's nice and secure.
There's a lot going on in different areas. What's happening here?
what you'll see here is we have different departments on each side of the main production floor that feed the 4 coaches that you're going to see. We have our plumbing department here, our outfitting department over here, our glass cutting department, and then our flooring. One thing that's neat to point out is our cabinet shop. It's the largest department that we have. It is behind a wall, and that door will shut. That is to help keep dust from intruding into the coaches as we build them. Dust is very hard to remove, so our goal was to keep all the dust on one side of the wall to the best we could.
So everything gets fed from these departments into these coaches here?
That's it. That's how it works. Everything comes from these departments and feeds the 4 coaches in the line.
Now these coaches are starting to come together more and more. I'm seeing the windows in here.
When a coach rolls into this position, they're in different stages, even though they're sitting side by side. And these coaches are going to sit here for what we call 2 beats of the drum, because our coach moves are based on 75 hours. So each coach will sit where it is at for 150 hours. Okay? So these 2 coaches are in an area that we refer to as interior. When a coach rolls forward, the walls are going to be installed in the interior, the support walls, the windows are going to be installed. We're going to finalize like the rear engine door, but the interior actually begins at this point.
So most of the components are in the coach by this time, or the big heavy duty components?
Most of the big heavy duty components are. The other components, such as electrical components, they're yet to come.
Okay, and there's something that I'm seeing in this coach I'd like to ask you guys about. I'm seeing this cooling system for the generators here, and Newell does it differently than anybody I know with this huge cooling system for that big 20 kW generator. What's the reasoning for that, and how does that work?
What you are seeing there is the generator cooling package, and you'll find that located in 1 or 2 locations on the Newell. The location that it's in now, midway at the coach, is because that is a front entry coach. If it would have been a mid-entry coach, that cooling package would have been forward on the passenger side of the coach, very forward bay.
What's the reasoning for having that?
The 20 kW generator, it's a large size unit, and we just don't have space in the front of the coach to allow the cooling package to set up there with the generator. So it has to have its own location.
Yeah, I can imagine that generator creates a lot of heat, so that's very important. Now on the interiors of these coaches, I'm starting to see some of that beautiful Newell coach finish work happening in there. Can we take a step inside of this coach, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and another mid-entry here. So they're getting some work done up front here, but is this an accent wall, or I love that fit and finish here.
It is. You know, traditionally in coaches there was either an art recess or just a bare wall, and this is just a beautiful accent. This will be lit when it's completed. Really a nice looking piece.
Yeah, can we walk through this coach? I'm seeing the bed frame start to come together, some of the electrical happening.
A lot of electrical happening. This is where they're tying in that finished electrical that happened earlier in the process. They're starting to terminate that into the lights and the shades and all the things that's going to power. One of the things that's unique about our bed system is that does collapse. And the reason that it collapses, it'll retract about 10 inches. And some of the floor plans, we can still walk around the coach even when the room slides are retracted.
Back here, I can really smell that cedar coming out of the rear closet here.
Correct. The rear closet, we always line with the cedar. There's a couple of instances where we were not able to, just for the customer had an allergy to that particular wood or something, so we'll leave that out. But it is nice and aromatic, and it's nice for the closet.
Yeah, and really cool to see all the different floor plans, and I can only imagine how this is all going to come together.
So
but
I'm in the shower.
Okay.
So we'll have our vanity over here. Washer dryer will be in that little closet beside you, and the commode will be here beside me. And that's all configurable, right? Usually won't see 2 of these exactly the same.
So a lot of work left to do on this coach.
And that's why we call it interior. This is just where the base cabinetry is going in, kind of the back end pieces of all the cabinetry. And then the next beige you'll see is where it starts to get finished out.
So it looks like the instruction manuals for the folks building the coaches here? Or?
Yes, it is. These are our blueprints. This is the elevation that we build from. There's a lot of information going on here. It's to let the employees know what options go with the coach, all the way down to where the cabinetry goes, because no 2 are identically the same. So this is the blueprint to the coach. Accompanied is a special options section to this print. So when you're looking at a print, after you see or retrieve the information that you're looking for, it's always so important to come over to the special options, check your special options and see if a special option may override the information on the print. And then also what is accompanied with the blueprint, if I could lift this up a moment, is there's a metal box here that we call it the metal box. So if you're at Newell, you hear the metal box. but this is the contract to the coach. It also contains any change orders that come along with the coach as the coach is being built. So from the time that the coach has been ordered and designed, it's very typical that a coach will grow change orders. The customer gets out there and gets to thinking, well, maybe I do want that option that I earlier said I didn't. So that would come across as a change order. So it is a full process on getting the coach built. But you are right. This is the main source of information to get the coach built.
And then it looks like some checklists here, and I'm seeing, 0 to 10 hours. I mean, very precise timeline of what's happening here. Very cool to see that.
What you're seeing here is we refer to this as our level load board. And what this does is you will notice that there's different departments labeled here throughout the board. For example, cabinet has the black label here, and items below that. That means that these items will at least be started or finished from the 0 to the 10-hour mark that coach has set in this position. And then as things get finished or started, the check marks along the side are indicated by individual employees that have finished that or have started that on schedule, and they mark that off. It's such a great tool to not only let anyone know that walks up to the board where that coach is in the process, but maybe even more importantly, it lets the employees know where they're at in the process and where the coach is in the process. For example, if you're an employee waiting on someone to do something prior to when you need to start something, you can easily walk out and see if that's been completed, and then you can start your process.
A very good organization here.
Great tool to keep on track with timing, because here, everything moves on a 75-hour or 150-hour mark.
So is this coach going to have the washer and dryer right here in the middle of the living room?
Customers are very adamant that it'd be right here. No, that's not the case. So as the coach is moving through what we call this, we're in fit and finish bay now. So a lot of your major appliances are coming in. We're doing the tile floors, but we'll load these large appliances through the windows. We'll set them up here until they're ready to install, and then they'll be moved to their proper placement in the coach.
Here I'm seeing the finish work on the ceiling here. I'm really liking the design here on this coach. This is going to be a beautiful coach.
Yeah, you're starting to see a lot of the finish trims coming into full view now.
I've never seen this before. There's a TV above the mid-entry. Very cool design.
So it's kind of a neat idea. It was a customer-driven idea. We used to have the television over here in the number 4 room, which it was always pretty prominent in the space. He asked if instead of a glasses cabinet, we could put the TV up here. This will be on an electrically actuated articulating arm, so he can bring it around and he can watch TV. When they're doing food prep or whatever at the galley, they can watch TV. It's actually a pretty smart idea. I anticipate we'll see more of those in coaches.
The mid-entry with the half bathroom on this side almost looks like a coffee station here.
Little beverage area.
Yes, sir.
Refrigerator will be right there behind the buffet. The thing I like about the mid-entry is, when you come up into the entry space, everything's right here. You got your half bath, you got your galley, you got your beverages, your refrigerator. You're not going completely through the coach to get there.
Yeah, this coach is really coming together nicely. It's cool to see them in this kind of raw state here. Now I'm seeing in the shower back here, a lot more going on back here than the last coach we saw. What's happening here?
So the last coach we went into, you just saw the bare bones and plywood of the shower. What you see here is the membrane that goes into every one of our coaches. All the corners will be sealed with urethane. This one's not quite finished yet. You can see some of that on the floor. There's a tape and urethane procedure that goes over all of these screws. So this is a completely watertight enclosure before the tile goes in.
One of the things that really impresses me with the Newell coaches is the cabinets. There's a lot going on in this department.
There's a lot going on in this department. Every piece of cabinetry that goes into the coach is manufactured in this department. There's more to it that you don't see, but behind us we do all our Corian countertops, or solid surface countertops are done in-house. What you see on the wall here are more of the common pieces that are used in the coach. What you see right here is pieces of bearing cover, different tops and things that are more common across coaches. These are cut on the CNC machine. They just keep these inventoried. We run 2 CNC machines all day long. We've got vertical saws, horizontal saws, We use safety saws. I don't know if anybody has seen those on the internet where you run a hot dog into it and it shuts the blade down. We use those through our entire facility. Safety is a very big thing here at Newell Coach, so we invested in that equipment.
Yeah, very important, taking care of these skilled craftsmen here.
Absolutely. As we move through the shop, different elements of cabinetry are being made. We've got a galley cabinet going together right here. Wall systems are over to our right. Some of the upholstered pieces are coming back. Those are going to be installed here pretty quickly. More cabinetry over here. That's a vanity for a half bath. Got a wall cabinet that'll go behind the recliners over here to our right. This place is pretty busy. And so all of this cabinetry feeds that center area that we looked at earlier. And as you can see, by keeping this separated from the manufacturing, we keep that area clean. We do have a dust collection system throughout here, so this is pulling all the dust out of this area as well. This is not necessarily air conditioned, but it's climate controlled. We want to control the humidity that's in the plywood, make sure everything is stable when it gets installed.
What's going on back here?
So this is a glue room. This gets shared with both cabinetry and the upholstery shop, so any adhesives that have to be sprayed, it has to be done in a controlled environment, right? We have ventilation here for that, but that's what that's for. There's one of these at the other end as well, so they don't have to walk all the way down.
Now this is where all the pretty stuff is happening. What's going on in this department?
This is our upholstery drapery department, and yes, this is where a lot of the leathers get put on, the fabrics get put on, and the big part of this process is right here in these racks. We'll have other shops, primarily the cabinet shop, but sometimes others that build and bring in raw parts. They'll stage the raw parts. Our upholsterers and our drapery people will then cover the parts with whatever desired fabric is on the build list, and then those parts get staged, get picked up later and installed into the coach. This is a department that really highlights keeping a lot in-house. So we build our own mattresses in here, we build our own curtains, we build our own pillows, we build our own bedding. So we're really proud of what they get accomplished in this department. And yes, it is part of the process that really beautifies the coach.
All these little, I mean, just the little stuff. I don't even know what type of pieces these are, but these are wrapped in suede here. All of these, smaller components, it looks like wrapped in leather, just so much little detail work that goes into that fit and finish that we see in the end product.
Some of the parts that you're seeing here are going to be installed on the dash. These are dash parts, speaker rings, ceiling parts. There's another part of this process that we do that sometimes gets left out, and that is the plastic pieces that you see that are getting covered. These are 3D printed right here at Newell. These are designed through the engineering process and sent out to the floor, and they're actually 3D printed and then covered. Just another way of us controlling our own quality and our timing.
Yes, sir, and I got to tip my hat to the team. You've got some extremely talented folks putting all this together with the double stitching, and I mean the refinement in the fit and finish is just next level.
Well, whenever you walk into a coach, that's the first thing you're going to see is the quality of the fabrics, the leathers, the stitching. All of that is very, very important, and it has to be correct and it has to be right.
Yeah, I can imagine your clients at this level have very high expectations.
That's true. They won't settle for anything less.
We've had a chance to walk some of the newest, latest, and greatest coaches here, and I cannot stop complimenting the Newell team on the bedding, all of the decor. They've got just some over-the-top cool styles with all of this stuff. Now, is all of this bedding done in-house?
It's all done in-house. It sure is. We do buy some of the bedding sheets, but we often, more times than not, we modify those, we customize those ourselves because we're open to any size of bed. Some of our beds have rounded corners. We buy only the best sheets, and then our team here will customize those sheets to fit that particular bed. But everything you see here was built right here in-house. Very proud of the team. They do a great job.
Here's some beautiful captain's chairs with that Newell embroidery. Now, does Newell build these air ride captain's chairs?
We do not build these. The customer will spec the material that they want to use for their seats or their furniture. We'll send that material off to Villa. Villa will build these seats, build some sofas and things for us, and then they ship them to us and we install them.
And how long have you been working with Villa?
Oh my goodness, 90, That was before me.
And how long have you been here?
I've been here 27 years.
So at least 27 years, a lot more than that.
At least
probably.
27 years that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So yeah, they've been great partners with Newell. They do a great job for Newell. And you can just see by the quality of the work with the welting and, as you mentioned, the Newell logo, they do a great job. We're in the electrical department now here at Newell, and one reason that the department is long and narrow is because of that. We pull from these wire racks and use the floor as mark-off distances. It allows us to get our wire pulled. Another thing that we do here is we build our own looms. This is a dash harness loom table. Typically, there'd be a much larger loom here getting built for a dash. We do our own looms in-house, and I think that might be a little different than most manufacturers. It allows us to customize and to allow change orders to come through in the middle of the process. James and his team has done a great job with making sure that we are pre-wiring for things that may come along with a coach in the future. So our Newells do have a lot of pre-wiring in there to accommodate future televisions, future electric components, things of that nature. Something else you'll notice in the department that we covered earlier is there's no one in the department. And that is because, once again, our electrical team is a little different than other departments. The electrical team starts all the way at the front of the process, and they work throughout the coaches until the coach gets handed off to the customer.
Yes, sir. Very important part of the build process, so that makes sense.
Very important part, and the electronics now that are in the vehicles, it just seems to be more and more, and we have to keep up with that.
Yes, sir. Very complex, but at this level, the customers want all the bells and whistles.
That's correct. That's correct.
This is my favorite part of the tour, the break room. I think it's cool to see, what a nice facility they have for all of these hard-working folks here at Newell Coach. All these vending machines, really cool, really high-end setup, very clean, very nice environment for the team to come take a break. And right now everybody's at work, so we've got the place to ourselves, but I don't know, I think I may have to grab a snack here. Well, Newell's been doing some incredible stuff in the paint department, and last time I was here, I think you guys made a pretty big expansion here.
We did. We've added paint booth space. We've added personnel. We've really tried to up our game with our paint quality, our paint designs. Ryan Laux is doing the original design with the customer. Once that has been completed, you can see a kind of an example of what Ryan does. He gets that down on paper, and that's all great, but that's got to be made into reality, right? So it's up to our paint team here at Newell Coach to turn that piece of paper into the real deal.
I'm seeing almost a bronze here, but the design is all whites and blues.
That color that you see is actually the pinstripe and some of these smaller stripes in the coach. So the entire coach gets painted that pinstripe color first, which is a little bit counterintuitive because that's what you see the least of. So then we take our pinstripe tape that you can see they've started bringing these shapes up. Then they'll layer their tape to bring in the different colors. As you can see, the white was the last color to be painted. And they'll just start layering up those colors and taping off the different areas. And then when they peel it all off, it looks like this. And a lot of the coaches, you see the shadowing that gives the dimension to the layers. Those guys do that by hand, which just blows my mind. We've got these trolleys that run up and down the length of the booth. Those go in and out, they go up and down, and they operate those by foot while they're operating an airbrush in their hand, and they'll run the whole length of the coach, giving dimension to these different stripe elements. It just blows my mind the talent these guys have.
They're artists for sure. We did an in-depth video with Tim Owens, the head of the paint design. We'll leave a link to that video in the description below, where we really went in depth explaining the paint process. Really incredible what you guys are doing. Talking about the paint designs, here's a brand new coach coming through the next part of the process, and I love that pattern ghosted in there. So much cool stuff they're doing, but what part of the process is this coach in?
When it arrives here, it's on a very tight schedule. We have a 40-hour mark that we have to put everything on the coach that we wouldn't want on the coach in the paint process, such as the stainless, the lighting, windshield wipers, mirrors, awnings, and then at the 40-hour mark, the coach will then have its first test drive. During that test drive, we'll normally put 150 to 170 miles on the coach, and we have a very detailed checklist that you're filling out during the drive. The drive consists of multiple stops, multiple checks, and off of that drive we form a punch list. When the coach returns from the drive, we put the punch list out to the different departments. In real time, they make the corrections or make the fixes to the coach that was identified during the first test drive. Once those items have been identified and fixed, the coach will then go into a rigorous water test and a smoke test. Once the water test and smoke test are complete, it'll go for test drive number 2. Test drive number 2 is the same as test drive number 1. We're still checking off items due to our checklist, and we're going to make a punch list of any items found that needs attention. And again, that's real time. Once those lists are finalized, the coach will then be scheduled for our cut and buff process. So each coach goes through a cut and buff process for the paint. That cut and buff process is a 3-day process. Once that cut and buff is finished, it'll move into the next bay, and we're getting very close now to hand it off to the customer.
So we're getting really close to that red carpet delivery for the new owners of this coach, but what are some of the other final steps taken before the owners take delivery?
Once the coach is in this bay, referred to as our delivery bay, getting ready for the red carpet, as you mentioned, the coach has now been cut and buffed. It has also been executive reviewed, which means that when an executive review is taking place, we bring in all department supervisors, our engineering team, our management team, and we literally go over the coach, both interior and exterior, in great detail. We will form a punch list off of anything that's identified that needs attention, and then we take care of those items. That is about the last step before we start the delivery process with the customer. At this point, I have personally test driven the coach, try to put about 100 miles on it at least myself, and then we're comfortable to put it in the hands of the customer.
So 3 test drives, 2 from your team, and then you're VP of manufacturing, you're doing that final test drive?
I am doing the final test drive on every coach.
Then the customers take the red carpet delivery. Now, what all is entailed when the owner is taking that delivery?
Typically, the owner will show up at Newell. We'll do a introduction and a preview of the delivery. We'll make our way out here for the reveal, and we give the customers time to take it all in. They'll look over the exterior, look over the interior, and after they're finished looking over the interior, the orientation actually begins. The orientation normally lasts 2 to 3 days because we cover everything through the bays, engine compartments, generator compartments, and then the entire interior. We go over all the features and functions of the AV system, the plumbing systems. It's a lot to take in, so it does take some time. And then after the orientation is complete, the customers typically go off on their own for a weekend for a shakedown of the coach. That can be somewhere local or somewhere of their choosing. And through their stay, they will make a list of things that they may want adjusted or something that they may desire to have changed. And they'll normally return on the next business day, which is typically a Monday. We make a list, and in real time, we make the changes or make the corrections.
And then they're on their own with their beautiful new Newell coach.
That's right.
Well, I really appreciate you guys showing us around the factory here. Now, if someone wants to custom build a new Newell coach, who can they get a hold of?
They can contact anyone in our sales department. Our sales is made up of Pat Dwyer, Brian Pitts, Phil Cornelius, and Josh Schneider. They could also visit the newellcoach.com website and navigate through there and get a hold of our sales team as well.
Gene, I appreciate your time, sir. And James, thank you very much, sir.
Andrew.
Thank you.
We also appreciate all of you out there subscribing to the channel. We hope you're all having a great day.
Thank you for watching.